its own way, apart from being proud of it. And to me, that's a lot of what we're doing here. The other thing is, I get the greatest thank you. I get the greatest affinity from our Mexican Hispanic fans when we fight at AT&T Stadium. I promise you I do. And I get letters that high from them, just simply thank you for having boxing there. So this is a labor of love, Oscar. All right.
Thank you very much, Jerry.
Thank you.
So now we will be joined by Bernard Hopkins. He's here. And see, one thing about
here we go.
One thing about Jerry Jones that we really admire is the love for boxing that he has. You know, when I flew down and with my president Eric Gomez, we flew down and we met Jerry Jones, and we talked for 3 whole hours, nothing but sports and no business whatsoever. But we knew right there and then that this fight is going to take place, this fight is going to happen. And when two great minds come together, you don't have to talk business. You just look at each other and you shake hands. And that's exactly who Jerry Jones is. He loves the Hispanic fans. He loves the Mexican community. And as we're all going to see it here tomorrow, we will be watching 50,000+ fans screaming and yelling Canelo. But in their heart, they're bleeding that color of the Dallas Cowboys because of Jerry.
And there was one thing you do when you meet him, as he explained, you asked for the money.
I did ask for the money.
I want to get back though. We talked before we went off on this series of thoughts. Vinny, we were talking a little bit about, Oscar was talking about Canelo coming down to 1 pound. You were a guy that had to come down a lot. It's portrayed in the movie, your incredible difficulties in making weight. I mean, again, Canelo only had to drop the 1 extra pound, perhaps struggled a little bit. Can you just talk about the really how difficult it is to do that? People think it's easy, it's just a pound or 2, but it can be brutal.
These guys know up here on stage with me what it's like. It's horrendous. The worst moments of my life were weigh-in days. The worst moments of my life were weigh-in days, always. Not sometimes, always. And I'm so glad my movie opens up and it shows that, because I'm on, I don't know if you guys seen it, I'm on a life cycle, and they're wrapping saran wrap around me, you know, to like drop. I'd lose, like there's one fight, I remember I lost 13 pounds in one day when I fought a rematch against this little mutt called Greg Haugen. But
Greg Haugen, yeah, that was a great fight.
I lost 13 pounds, and the next day, I had 5 of these fights. Only 5, it's not bad, out of 60, Larry. You know, I won 50 fights. I had 5 bad fights out of 60 fights. And I call them oh God fights. And I had to lose so much weight that I just couldn't make it. I couldn't come back when the fight was happening. And I would be walking to the ring and saying, oh God, please let this mofo have a bad night. Please, God, please. And that never happened, because when they fought me, they knew they were fighting iron. They were gonna have to go strong. Everybody fought me, and they fought hard, and they fought the best fights of their life. So I got my ass kicked in those 5 fights, but I take it as God let me live. So it's a good thing. But some of those, and you guys know, because you guys, and I love what you're saying, Oscar. I love what you're saying about this kid Canelo. Like, you're the kind of promoter I wanted.
Exactly.
You're a guy that loves the fighter. You know, you don't just want to make money. You don't just put on the show. You love the fighter, and that's what this boxing is all about. That's what's great about it. And you don't see that all the time. You know, we know that. Bernard, you know that very well.
Well, our first battle is making the weight. That's the battle. And look, and there's fighters who are like Canelo, who don't fluctuate too much. There's fighters like Bernard Hopkins, who train every single day, and when they fight, on Sunday after church, they're in the gym once again. I mean, that's who Hopkins is. And there's fighters like me who take a few weeks off and then maybe fluctuate 10 pounds. There's fighters who gain 50 pounds, and so it's different for everybody. But for every single fighter, the weight is our first battle.
So Vinny, you fought between 130 and I thought 168.
135 to 168.
168. And
And
Oscar,
even when I was fighting at 135, my normal weight, my hang around weight would be 165.
Right.
And I think Donna Duva's here. Is she here now? Donna Duva with the Duvas?
Kathy Duva.
Kathy Duva.
But
No.
Oscar fought between 130 and 160 and went up the scale over the years. Bernard, though, I want to get to you about that. You were a guy that you fought in 2 weight divisions. You fought as a middleweight for most of your career, at the end of your career at light heavyweight, career that you say is still going on at this point. But what I want to know is you made the record 20 title defenses at middleweight. So there was no, okay, 3 fights later I'm moving up. You were a guy that every single fight for years and years and years and years had to make 160. Talk about the difference between the consistency of having to do that time and time again, whereas fighters like Vinny and Oscar, they did it a few times and then they went on to the next weight class.
Well,
The consistency is remarkable.
the consistency is important, but to get to that consistency part or mentality, most fighters have 2 camps. 2. What do you mean 2 camps? A camp to lose weight, and then a camp to get ready for a fight. So I figure out early in my career that I'm gonna reduce that down to 1 camp to prepare for my opponent. At that time, I was thinking my enemy. So while others are wasting time, having that other camp called losing 30, 25, 15, or whatever pounds they losing, time they get to the second camp where they gotta worry about my badass, they're already 2 months back. So numbers don't lie, and I know how to count pretty good. I was always ahead of the game because of longevity. Because of that, longevity showed in my career and showed in my performance. And so then, those 2 camps that most fighters, even today, live by, always will give a guy like myself in the future, young, right now, the edge, because that other camp of losing weight and then getting to who I'm fighting don't get recognized, or at least attention when it's needed, until the last week or 2 before the fight. And that's the advantage.
I want to ask a little bit about the atmosphere as it relates to Canelo. He's going to fight here in the stadium. By Jerry's estimates and what you and Oscar have said, there may be as many as 50 or more thousand people here. It's going to be mostly a Canelo Alvarez crowd. There'll be maybe a smattering of Brits, but this is a Canelo Alvarez house. You guys have been in your fights, Vinny, Oscar, and Bernard, in fights where you were largely, well, not so much Bernard, but Oscar and Vinny, the hometown guy, the favorite, the popular fan favorite. Can you talk about what it's like, Vinny, I'll start with you, what it's like to walk into an arena where every single person is rooting for you, and some people would say that's a great thing, others would view it as a lot of pressure. How did you feel going into your arenas in Rhode Island with the whole fans behind you?
First, let me say Bernard is a badass. and the main thing about that guy, it's called discipline. This dude had more discipline than anybody. And Oscar, you know what I mean.
Still does.
He still does, I know.
Every day.
And I'm amazed.
How many
I'm
miles
amazed
did you run
at
this
it.
morning?
See, I'm amazed at that. I want to go out and drink. I don't drink till 10 o'clock at night, but after that, I'm
I
out.
haven't had one of those in 30 years.
Yeah, hey,
And I'll be 52 in
Discipline.
January.
I know. I got you. But
We're talking about what it's like to go into the packed house and everyone's for you.
I'm going to tell you a hysterical story. I'm fighting Roberto Duran, and now I'm kind of like the young cocky kid, and he's like the.
I mean, you hear that? I'm fighting Roberto Duran. Like nothing, right? Like nothing.
Yeah, no,
Name
no,
drop.
no. One of the guys.
I mean, this is
love
a bad
that guy.
man right here.
I love that guy. I started boxing because I loved Ali and Duran. I couldn't believe I was fighting him. I'm like, oh my God, I'm fighting my hero. So, anyways, he gets up at the first press conference and he starts talking like dogging the shit out of me. And I went, oh my God, it like went through my heart. He's like, yeah, your Playboy girlfriend's gonna have to put your ass, take care of you when I put you in the hospital. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy saying to me? Oh my God. I can't believe that. I love this guy. So anyway, so I got ready.
It's a family show.
I know. And families swear too. But so I get ready for the fight, and now I think, all right, the crowd's gonna be with him. All right, it's cool, you know. Don't worry about the crowd. They ain't fighting him. Walk in the ring. They introduce me. So now they introduced me in Atlantic City, sold out place, Donald Trump's place. They introduced me, and I was just, wow. Oh my God, the fans are with me. Wow, this is really cool. I'm gonna really kill this guy. And then they introduced, and in this corner, Manos de Pedros from Panama, Roberto Duran. The roof almost fell off. The house almost came down. I said, okay, Paz, man. They're not in the ring. Don't worry about it. So it's a big thing when the crowd's on your side. It's a good feeling for people, but when the fight gets down and it gets going, the crowd don't matter.
Oscar, you were always the crowd favorite most of the time that I can remember anyway. All those big fights in Vegas. You seem to thrive on that. You like having that crowd on your side. Was I right about that impression that you
No,
enjoyed it?
I did because I mean, one thing about me, look, I was on the big stage in 1992, Barcelona, the Olympics. It doesn't get any bigger than that. And back then, boxing, was televised on NBC, prime time, and the world fell in love with my story. And so, the Golden Boy was born, and I was able to fill up houses right from my first fight. Thousands and thousands of people. But the one fight that stands out, I was fighting this unknown kid, Patrick Charpentier.
That's the fight that was here in
it was in El
Texas,
Paso. We had about, 60,000 people. But the funny part was that I think three quarters of them were women, from little girls to grandmothers to you would see these quinceañera dresses. They would have their prom dresses on and with signs, Oscar, will you marry me, and this and that. And it was the best. And I thrived from it because I wanted to give a good show. I wanted to go out there and perform. I wanted to show my skill and all the hard work that I put in the gym. Because I was a hard worker. And like Hopkins said, there were times, maybe once when I fought Pacquiao, my last fight, where I had to go down to 147, which was a huge mistake, where I did have to focus on the weight.
So blame Larry because he helped make that fight.
Yeah, right. That's Larry's fault. But other than that, I loved fighting for the fans. I loved fighting the fact that there was thousands and thousands of people there. It gave me such a rush. And I'm gonna tell you the truth, I miss it every single day. I'm sure you miss being in the ring. We miss it every single day. Somebody asked me the other day, do you wish you were fighting today? I go, yes. I think about fighting every single day, that I can still make a comeback, that I can still, maybe fight in the senior league or something. No.
That's the answer.
Now, on the other side of that, you have Liam Smith, who has fought in his home country for all of his fights, but now he is coming to the United States, into the Lions Den. I want to ask Larry your thoughts about any fighter that is got the mentality or the heart, if you will, to pick up and travel across the globe and come into the other guy's town. Now, of course, he's going to be paid very handsomely to do so, but he is on enemy turf, and he is the one defending his title, but most people expect Canelo Alvarez to carry the day. Your thoughts on his mentality of wanting to come and do this fight here in Canelo's crowd?
Well, first, Dan, Oscar, I just reminded myself when you mentioned that fight in El Paso against this French croissant of an opponent. And after the fight, I said to Oscar, when are you going to start fighting real fighters? And that was, and then he went on from there
And that's what ignited the, fighting anybody,
to his credit.
everybody.
And he,
Don't worry about it. He said things about me also. And I start fighting too.
look, I think of pressure. You hear that word a lot. I think of it as opportunity. If the pressure on, it's the opportunity. If it's Oscar fighting before all his fans, it's an opportunity to fulfill them and make them happy. If you're going into an arena where there are none of your fans, it's an opportunity to show the world. You can't think of it as pressure.
Point.
You got to think of it, if you're a real athlete, this is my opportunity. This is what I wanted to do all my life.
Now, Bernard, you have a little bit of experience with that because you have Liam Smith coming from Britain here to fight in what will be Canelo's crowd. Your first world championship fight, a long time ago, you traveled to Quito, Ecuador, not exactly a boxing hotbed, and took on the hometown fighter, Segundo Mercado. Talk about that experience of going into the Lion's Den. I mean, you did that a few times, even in your United States fights, fighting Tito Trinidad in New York, where it was all his fans. Talk about that experience of going to another country like Ecuador.
Yeah,
and,
in 1984, I had a mandatory that I
was it
worked
84?
my way. It was 1994.
94.
I had a mandatory in 94 with Segundo Mercado, and
For the vacant title.
Yeah, for a vacant title that James Toney had vacated. And so, being number one contender and number two contender, of course, Segundo Mercado, we had to fight. And so, Don King was the promoter of Segundo Mercado, and I had the late Butch Lewis. And so, we accepted the fight, we accepted the opportunity. As Larry Merchant said, opportunity. I was willing to travel, and I did, to Quito, Ecuador. I'll never go. I haven't been back since. I'll tell you that. But what I did do,
Got knocked down twice.
I got knocked down twice. Thanks, Dan. I got knocked down twice. I didn't want to bring it up, Dan. But anyway, I got knocked down twice. I rose up and I fought my way to a draw in Ecuador, fighting the Ecuadorian. I was glad to get the draw. When we got out of Ecuador, eventually we rescheduled the fight. Well, rematch. Because nothing was settled. It was a draw. And I won in Landover, Maryland in 1995, and of course held that IBF middleweight title for 12 years with 20 defenses. But that is very intimidating when you go places, but for some. For me, it was more of I have to leave everything on the table. The crowd that's hollering, screaming for the guy that's hometown, to me that sparked the flame, that sparked that I'm fighting him also, but I'm also fighting them. Tito Trinidad in 2001, New York City, 90% crowd support Tito.
98%.
98%, well 98 and a half. I knew that, but I used that for food for the fire. I used that as saying to myself, I must be near or if not perfect this fight, and I use that in a different way. I changed it where I'm going to shut them up and of course beat Tito, but I had to do that in the ring first. So Dan, for most people it can be kind of intimidated, it can be kind of, man, I don't have a chance. But when you run into a fighter, and Smith, to me, his ability and where he's coming from across the pond to here, Larry Merchant said it 10 plus minutes ago, there's an opportunity. You cannot underestimate anyone, no matter where they live, no matter where they come from, and who they are, because opportunity in history of boxing have proved people that had those opportunities. Buster Douglas, a lot of upset fights. George Foreman, Michael Moore. It happened, as Jim Lampley said, it happened. Things do happen. Things do happen in boxing. Strangely enough, things do happen.
So we discussed earlier that here comes Liam Smith, maybe not the most well-known fighter, comes from a fighting family, has his title, has knocked out his last 8 opponents in a row. So from the standpoint, I'll talk a little about the business side of things then. We all know that Canelo has bigger business down the road, hopefully against Triple G at some point. But so on the promotional end, then how much trepidation is there to bring him into this big event, put him in the ring with an undefeated fighter that you really don't know a whole lot about, who's really stepping up to a top level for the first time, but you know, people can say that he's not that good, but they don't really know because he's never had the opportunity. There's that word again, this is the opportunity. So from the business side, how concerned or worried do you get when you put him in with